Do managers and leaders really do different things? I'm a management consultant, and in this video we will answer that question. But before we dive into that, please consider subscribing to get notified when we publish new videos every week on topics like this. We have another video here on how to become a good leader, so check that out next. So do managers and leaders really do different things? It depends on who you ask. You might find some people saying that managers and leaders are essentially the same thing. They just use different titles. And if you look at it from an organization chart perspective, they don't. Managers typically manage day-to-day operations, translate strategy into action, and monitor performance against set targets. Their actions focus on efficiency, effectiveness, and getting things done today. Other people may tell you that managers and leaders are two entirely separate roles, even though they report to the same manager or leader. Herein lies the problem. The truth is somewhere in between these two extremes. Managers can be leaders and leaders can manage, but they shouldn't. Let me explain why. Let's first start with what we mean by manager and leadership. We all use the situational leadership model by Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey as our foundation for this discussion. This model suggests that leaders need to adapt their style depending on the maturity of their team members. Therefore, the first step in becoming a great leader is knowing where your team members are in terms of their development. There are 4 different levels of maturity according to this model. A team member with low maturity has limited experience, lacks confidence, and needs a lot of guidance. In contrast, a team member with high maturity is experienced, confident, and self-motivated. Now that we know the levels of maturity, let's look at the different leadership styles. The telling style is suitable for team members with low maturity. The style is directive and leaves little room for questions. As a telling leader, you will closely monitor your team members' actions and provide guidance on how to complete tasks. The second style is coaching. This style is better suited for team members with medium to low maturity. As a coaching leader, you will still guide your team members through tasks, but you will also provide feedback on their performance. The selling style is suited for team members with medium maturity. You will use this style to sell your vision and get buy-in from your team members. As a selling leader, you will listen to your team members' concerns, but ultimately you will be the one to decide what direction the team should take. Finally, the delegating style is ideal for team members with high maturity. As a delegating leader, you will empower your team members to make decisions and take ownership of their work. You will trust that they will deliver without the need for guidance or feedback. Now that we know the different leadership styles and when to apply them, let's look at the different managerial roles. There are 3 main roles that managers perform. First, they are responsible for planning. This includes setting objectives, determining strategies, and allocating resources. Second, managers organize. This involves putting the plan into action by coordinating people and other resources. Third, managers control. This means monitoring progress against the plan, taking corrective actions when necessary, and ensuring that the objectives are achieved. You can see where this is going. Managers and leaders share many similarities in their day-to-day activities. In fact, there's a lot of overlap. For example, both roles require strong communication skills, decision-making ability, the ability to handle conflict, and the ability to build relationships. Both roles also need to ensure that their teams achieve their objectives. However, there's one key difference between the 2 roles. Managers maintain the status quo, while leaders drive change. Let me elaborate. Managers are focused on the efficient and effective use of resources to achieve predetermined objectives. They execute on the company's strategy, which is decided by the senior leadership team. If you look at the managerial roles, planning, organizing, and controlling, you can see that they are all focused on maintaining the current state of affairs. The goal of a manager is not to change anything. It's to keep things running smoothly and efficiently. In contrast, leaders are focused on helping their organizations adapt and change over time. They must anticipate future trends and developments, and then take steps to ensure that the organization is prepared for them. Leaders need to be able to articulate a clear vision for the future, and then inspire and motivate their team members to follow them towards that vision. This brings us back to the original question. Do managers and leaders really do different things? Well, the answer is yes and no. Yes, because ultimately, their goals are different. Managers want to maintain the status quo while leaders want to drive change. No, because in practice, managers and leaders often end up doing the same things. So how can you, as a manager, balance both roles effectively? To balance these 2 roles, you need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each and then play to them. You also need to be aware of the potential conflicts that can arise between the 2 roles and be prepared to deal with them. As a manager, your first responsibility is to your organization. You are accountable for achieving your objectives, no matter how you go about doing it. This means that you need to be able to say no to requests from your team members to engage in leadership activities. If you want to be a leader, you need to be willing to sacrifice some of your managerial responsibilities. This doesn't mean that you should stop managing altogether, but rather that you need to delegate some of your duties to others so that you can focus on the more strategic aspects of your role. For example, if you're asked to lead a cross-functional project, you should be willing to do it. Even though it will take you away from your day job as a manager, you need to be able to say no to some things in order to make room for the more important stuff. Another way to balance these two roles is to focus on developing your team members so that they can take on more responsibility in the future. By doing so, you will free up your time to focus on more strategic work. You should also encourage your team members to take on leadership roles within the company. This will help to create a pipeline of future leaders. Finally, remember that being a manager and a leader are two different things. You need to be aware of the different goals, values, and behaviors of each role and make sure that you're playing to the strengths of each. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Instead, focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. Be a manager when you need to be a manager, and a leader when you need to be a leader. Alright folks, that's it for now. Check out this video on how to become a good leader. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and we will see you next time.